husband and I were born and raised in Texas. We retired Air Force in 2001, and we moved to San Antonio in 2007. Today, I'll tell you about the mental illness in my family beginning in December 1976. I was 11 years old. I lived in Central Texas, and my dad's family lived in Georgia. This is what I was told happened in Georgia. She cowered in the corner. He hit her with a stick over and over until she died. He ran jubilantly to the neighbor's house. "I killed the dog," he said. The neighbors came to see. They saw his wife, Maddie, slumped in the corner, my grandmother. My grandmother, Maddie, and her husband, my dad's stepmother, were both schizophrenic. My grandmother died that day. It was the only time I ever saw my dad cry. My dad's stepfather went to a mental institution for prisoners. I've learned about mental illness by looking at my family's issues. Everyone has mental illness in their family, probably not as severe as schizophrenia. According to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, 1 in 5 Americans will be impacted by depression in their lifetime. In Psalms 22:1, it says, "When we suffer, we are not alone." Let me say that again. When we suffer, we are not alone. In the last 7 months, my mom died, and my son has had a lot of trouble. And 2 specific people called me about 7 months ago, and they were real hesitant. And they said, "I don't know why, but I felt like I needed to call you. And I know why. God sent them. God sent them to me. They were heaven sent. And they are still calling me and checking on me because God sent them to me because we are not alone going through our trials. I met my grandmother when I was 3. I have pictures of this visit. She was kind. She could make great biscuits. She was not social. There's no pictures of her holding me. She smoked a cigar. It was probably for her anxiety. When she became psychotic, her whole demeanor would change. You could see it in her eyes. My father had angry outbursts. He smoked cigarettes for his anxiety, and he would drink Pepto-Bismol for his stomach pains. That was probably anxiety too. My father was a family man. He was an introvert. He was a businessman. He loved taking us to Dairy Queen and to play putt-putt golf and bowling. I've had depressive episodes throughout my life. The first was when my husband went to Desert Storm and I was left at home with 2 very small children. Later, we had a series of deaths. First, my husband's sister Cherry passed away, and then his mother passed away. My husband struggles with these deaths, and our marriage suffered. This brought on the second major depression. I never requested medication or went to a psychiatrist until I had trouble with my children. My daughter had significant teenage rebellion, and my son started hearing voices at school. My depression was easy to treat at first. It became harder after about 5 years, and the psychiatrist boosted the antidepressant with a mood stabilizer, and this caused tardive dyskinesia, a movement disorder. When I was taken off the mood stabilizer, I went into a major depression for 2 years. There are examples of depression, suicidal thoughts, even suicide in the Bible. David in Psalms 38:4 says, "My guilt has overwhelmed me like a burden too heavy to bear." Job in Job 3:26 says, "I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest, but only turmoil." Jonah in Jonah 4:3, "Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live." Elijah in 1 Kings 19:4 says, "While he himself went on a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. 'I have had enough, Lord,' he said. 'Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors.'" So he was having suicidal thoughts. Saul in 1 Samuel 31:4 took his own sword and fell on it. When my own son was 13, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He heard voices, had delusions, and suffered from paranoia. Things quickly went out of control. At 15, the diagnosis was changed to schizoaffective disorder bipolar type. Let me tell you a few funny stories about Jacob. As a family, we took a trip to Port Aransas. We rented a house by the beach. Early one morning, my cell phone rang. A police officer was on the phone, and he said, Jacob had taken a walk, got lost, and went into the police station to get help to find his way back. So I gave him the address of where we were, and when I saw the police car pull into the driveway, Jacob jumped out of the car, smiling ear to ear. He was wearing his pajamas, barefoot. His feet were so black. He had had the best morning. He walked all over Port Aransas in the sunshine, went exactly where he wanted to go, and then got in a ride home. Best day ever. Another time, the whole family was in the kitchen. Jacob was pacing back and forth, and Chelsea, my daughter, was so frustrated. She said, "Jacob, what's wrong?" And he said, "I can't get to the refrigerator." So she took him by the arm and she said, "Penguins, move out of the way, move out of the way." And we were all laughing so hard, but Jacob got to the refrigerator. God tells us to be kind to each other, and Chelsea was kind that day. Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. 1 Peter 4:8. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sin. Ephesians 4:32. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Galatians 6:10. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. Luke 6:35. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. My son has never been my enemy, but sometimes with him, things are very hard. The times when he yells at the voices, breaks things, He's lit things on fire several times. Those times it's hard to love. We've had terrifying moments where he cuts himself and talks about suicide. He's run from both Laurel Ridge and San Marcos. At 24, he's told me of hundreds of voices screaming at him, and he screams back. He's put his feet on the windshield in frustration and broke the windshield. He has slammed his fist into the window and into his hand to scare us. He'll take his seatbelt off to prepare to get out of the car. Sometimes he'll drag his feet on the ground. Other times he'll successfully get out of the car. Jacob's had other unusual worries, such as the water running through the pipes. He's afraid the water will be sad, so he chooses to drink bottled water. He'll not allow anything close to the dog food in the pantry. He's got so many rules for himself. We don't have to understand each other to love each other. If you write anything down today, write that down. We don't have to love each other. We don't have to understand each other to love each other. The stigma against the mentally ill refers to people like my son, those that hear voices, are paranoid, who laugh for no reason. My son is valuable. He's not demon possessed. He did not become like this from a sin he committed. Psalms 139:16 celebrates this reality. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. God is not surprised by any of our suffering. He wants to use us all. The mental health issues in my family have spanned 4 generations. My grandmother, my father, me, and my son. They've gone further back, I'm sure. I've learned about the present by looking at the past. All families are touched by mental illness. God tells us to be kind to each other and that we don't have to love each other. We don't have to understand each other to love each other. We are valuable. We're here for a purpose. Let me leave you with this. Psalms 139:16. He sees us before we were created. He knew us. Ephesians 2:10. He made us. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. God made us all for a purpose. We're here for a reason. Does anyone have a question or a story to share?